Last one of the unit, Linkage Institutions, Unit 3, Video 16, again about the media, this time, sequel. Alright, we have some rules that the media have to follow. They are not allowed to commit libel. Libel is a written lie. It's like the written version of slander. Slander is a spoken lie. This is a written lie. So while they do have freedom of the press, they cannot commit libel. To convict a person of libel, you have to prove, I should say, 4 things. First 3 are going to be easy. You have to prove that the statement was untrue. You also have to prove that it harmed the person. So maybe the lie or the incorrect statement, it hurt their business somehow, or it hurt their reputation. Number 3 is that it showed a reckless disregard for the truth. That maybe somebody told them a story that they should have investigated further, but they didn't. So they showed a disregard for the truth. That one's a little tough to prove. The last one is the toughest one to prove. You have to show that they had malicious intent, meaning that they were intentionally trying to hurt a person. It cannot have been an accident. So to convict a person or a news group of libel, all 4 of those things have to be proven, which is very, very tough to do. You see the goofy picture next to you, Dick Cheney's a robot. You don't have to know this, but the Supreme Court has ruled that those kinds of tabloids, nobody takes them seriously, so that's not libel. They actually do have the freedom to say crazy things like they want because they aren't viewed as real news. Alright, the media engages in agenda setting. Go ahead and highlight this one if you haven't already. This is one of the more important terms in this section. The idea of agenda setting, and you can think of it in your personal life. If you are dealing with your agenda, it's the plan, it's your schedule, what you're going to deal with on that day. So it's the same thing with agenda setting. Instead of it being for you or one person now, it's the issues that the government is going to address. So that's their agenda. The media can influence the list of issues that the government is going to address. So they influence agenda setting. The way that they do that kind of goes back to the last video. When they focus on certain issues, those issues seem more important to the public. So guess what the public demands? The government to address those issues. So for instance, after something like Sandy Hook, where you have a school shooting, or when you have Aurora, Colorado, where you had the movie theater shooting, there were people, because the media focused on those stories, obviously because they were newsworthy and they were dramatic, there were people who then started to demand that we would have more gun control laws as a result. So the government had to take on that issue, even though they didn't do anything. They had to look into it and investigate it and start bills having to do with that, because that's what the public was demanding. So the media absolutely influences agenda setting of the government. Alright, another term is framing, and this is the same if you took AP Psych or some other classes. Framing refers to how an issue is presented. So they can make something seem more positive or less positive by the way that by the tone that they use, in this example here, by the pictures that they show. If they show the top 2 pictures, it looks like on the right, he looks like a criminal. He has an earring in his ear, he's kind of unshaven. Looks like he has maybe an angry face. It almost looks like a mugshot basically there. Whereas obviously Trayvon Martin looks like a young, smiling, happy kid. The bottom pictures, now you can kind of flip it and frame the issue differently. Now George Zimmerman is the one that's smiling, looks like a good, upstanding citizen, and I actually cut off that picture of Trayvon Martin, but he has both middle fingers up in that picture. So now he looks like he's the young, rebellious one that kind of could be the troublemaker. So just how an issue is presented, that's framing. And again, that can influence how we perceive it. Alright, we have a term called leaks. This is referring to when somebody within the government, they talk to a reporter off the record, which means that their name isn't on it. It's going to be an anonymous tip or an anonymous source in which they're going to talk to a reporter and they're going to give them some information about something that's happening within the government. And so oftentimes you will see this. If you watch the news or read a news article, you'll see them say things like, according to White House sources or top administration officials say, and they won't put the person's name, but they will tell what that person said. And the reason why governments have leaks is that somebody within that office, the reason that the person goes to the media and talks to them, is that they are either trying to build support for a certain idea, or they're trying to kill it if they think it's an unpopular idea. So that can be the goal, either to help it or to hurt it. But the idea is basically it is an unnamed source and they're trying to influence the public's opinion. A trial balloon is pretty similar. This is where Again, you'll have a source kind of let on about an idea, and they do this to test public opinion. So because it's anonymous and unnamed, and because officially they don't have anything to do with the government, so let me give you a good example of this. Trial balloon. Let's say that the Secretary of State thinks that we should be going to war, like against ISIS, for example. So let's take the current one. So we should increase military strikes in Syria. Let's pretend like that hasn't happened yet. Rather than announcing from the Secretary of State saying, Secretary of State believes that we should, attack ISIS more, because that could be very controversial, the better way for them to do that is to talk to a reporter, somebody that they trust, a reporter that they work with, and basically leak the idea of, hey, I want you to write an article, an opinion article, an editorial, in which you say that we should increase our attacks against ISIS. And so now you'll have somebody, and it's going to be somebody influential, and they're going to write an article in something like the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. Those are our two most important newspapers in this country. And they will write an editorial, an opinion piece, in which they argue why the United States should attack ISIS more. And the thing about this, how the administration benefits, is because whatever's in the New York Times and on the Wall Street Journal, that's what the news is going to be talking about on TV. So on NBC, on Fox, on CNN, they talk about what those two newspapers write about. So now they're going to talk about that idea for a couple of days. They're going to say, should the U.S. increase their attacks on ISIS? And what this allows the administration to do is now they can see public opinion. Are people supporting that idea, or do they dismiss it like it was a horrible idea? The benefit for the administration is that if the public thinks it's a terrible idea, well, it wasn't from the administration. It was just some random guy writing a newspaper article. So the administration's like, yeah, no, we think that's a horrible idea too, even if they actually liked it. If the public likes the idea and it has public support, now they can come out in favor of it, already knowing that the public is going to be on board with it. So trial balloons are a great way for them to test public opinion, to see whether or not an idea that they want to do, whether it will be received well by the public. All right, my boy Ron Burgundy. Is the media biased? This is a common question on the AP test, and I know that your answer is yes. I know it is, because you see in the news, and you know that Fox, appeals to conservatives, and MSNBC appeals to liberals. The answer to that question is no. And yes, I'm being serious. The answer really is no. What I want you to know for this class is that journalists do tend to be more liberal, but there is no significant media bias. And here's the bottom line. The long and short version of that, how that could possibly be true, is that while MSNBC and Fox News on their opinion shows, they put on people that are very, liberal or conservative, like MSNBC puts on Keith Olbermann, they used to anyway, and now Rachel Maddow, and Fox puts on people like Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly, who are very conservative. Those are opinion shows. We aren't talking about opinion shows here. We're talking about the news of the day. And both MSNBC and Fox News report the news in a basically unbiased way. So the answer is no, even if that goes against your gut instinct. No, the media is not biased. The media is, however, very sensationalistic. They focus on dramatic stories, things like the president having an affair. You can see some of the goofy examples down here, but that's what they focus on, things that are dramatic, things that are out of the ordinary, because they're trying to get people to watch the news. The way that the media is important, so they don't bias us, they don't make us more liberal or conservative, but they do influence what issues we think are important. So they constantly report on presidential elections, so that's why those seem more important to us than midterm elections or than primaries. After 9/11, obviously that was in the news for a long time, so it became a very important issue to us. It was an important issue. The fact that they focused on it so much keeps it important even today. Casey Anthony trial, as bad as that is, it is just one murder that took place in a country where we have thousands of murders per year. So why does everybody know her name and not every other murderer's name out there? The reason is because the media was all over that case for months at a time. So what they focus on, it influences what we think are important. Absolutely no, and highlight that statement. What is the ultimate goal of the media? Is to make money. Very, very simply, it is to make money. It is not to inform you. If you happen to get informed, that's good. It is not to make you liberal. It is not to make you conservative. It is to make money. That is their ultimate goal. President has several media advantages over Congress. 3 things. For one, he represents the entire country, whereas Congress, each representative, they only represent a district. A senator only represents a state. He represents everybody. He's only one person, so rather than tracking down 435 representatives or 100 different senators, you just ask one person. So again, it's easier for the media to focus on him. And he, rightly or wrongly, is seen as the face of the government. So when the president speaks, people tend to listen. So he has an advantage of using the media because he can communicate more directly with the American people than any representative or senator can.